I would say it was well-meaning family members.
Okay.
They grew up abroad where, coming to the West was seen as the golden ticket to success. And I believe they did the best they could with what they had. And I come from a family of doctors. My dad's a doctor, my granddad's a doctor, my mum's a biochemist. So science and medicine was always in the picture. Um, I think that pressure came from a fear of the unknown. That was all they knew, and they didn't really believe there could be anything else.
So, in today's episode, we are going to a place that I don't really talk about so much in the context of alternative careers, developing careers in industry, but actually is a really important topic, which is about being a woman of color, a Black woman, in this space, being a Black woman leader, and really carving out your own path and some of the challenges associated with that. And I'm really, really excited to run this episode with Dr. Rania Ibrahim, who is one of our star leadership industry fellows on our Doctors in Industry program. And we'll go through her story as to not only how I've observed, or many of us have observed her transformation on the program in a few short months, but everything that brought her to the program and the huge impact that she has made, but also where she came from and how that has shaped her life and career journey. So I want to say really warm welcome. It's a real pleasure to do this with you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. What an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan and I was saying like I think one of the first in-person conversations I had with you, because obviously I had lots beforehand, was outside Victoria Station a couple of months ago in March before we were about to go to Battersea Park for our fellow day, which involved going Go Ape and also then Houses of Parliament. It was amazing. But one of the first things I remember you saying to me was like you are an EFNP, Myers-Briggs types, which it was exactly the same as mine. So could you
Mhm.
describe like what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are the best personality type.
Yeah.
ENFPs are such a joy to be around. We were talking about it earlier today. We are quick starters. We are
Mhm.
we are adaptable. We are such creative thinkers. We are colorful and quirky and just a joy to be around, I would say.
Well, yeah, my husband might not say that, but yeah, I mean, like, we appear, I say we appear to be outgoing, and a lot of people say I'm an extrovert. I'm not sure if I identify with that, but we're outgoing, we get on with things, we get things done, right? And we get started
Yeah.
yesterday. And so with everything that you've described, the creative element as well, but with everything you described, uh, how how did that fit for you in medicine, in the
Hmm.
NHS, in healthcare? How was that for you?
A really good question. I think it was really difficult. I didn't
Mm,
see much of my creativity being nurtured during medical school. I always felt like I really stood out and that wasn't necessarily encouraged. It was very much you go through med school, F1, F2, ST1, ST2, and this is the ladder that's given to you. And there's not much flexibility or leeway around that. And I remember even thinking after I finished F2, I really want to do global health, but there's no global health training pathway. So what am I supposed to do? And that led to me sort of having 2, 3 years out thinking about what I was going to do next. And I didn't fit into a box. It wasn't cardiology, it wasn't dermatology, and I didn't really know where to kind of put that passion that I had into when there wasn't kind of an ST1 place for that. There wasn't a training program for that.
mm. I find that really interesting because, yeah, we're given this pathway, right? And I think, especially because I mean, so many doctors who are creatives, and I look back and, I'm like, God, how did I survive that long as a clinician in a system that was really not against, but yeah, against what I'm actually intuitively, I'm talking intuitively about. Um, and I left the traditional healthcare system about 7, 8 years ago now, and I'm still recovering from that because it just wasn't a great match. And, coming into this with my occupational health hat, I see a lot of people who are also in a similar system where it isn't a great match. And struggling, and it presents as so many different things. But I mean, being, a migrant woman,
Mhm.
because I know that you're originally from Sudan and of color in medicine, like what parts of you did you really have to downplay or hide in that
Mm.
process?
Yeah, so to kind of summarize, being a Black Muslim woman, I found the
Mm,
intersectionality of that was really difficult. Each one
mm,
of those things comes with its own challenges, and to have kind of three of them combined, I found that really difficult. I went to Bristol University, and it was quite an elitist university. There wasn't very much, there weren't many people of color, and I found myself really sticking out. And I even noticed it very subtly, and we did some research back when I was in university, around when George Floyd was kind of happening in the Black Lives Matter movement. We did some research and we found that professors and lecturers would and doctors who were teaching sort of seminars, they would, when they were interacting with students, if you had a name that was difficult to pronounce, they wouldn't ask you as many questions. They might be like, "Oh, Sam, what do you think of this
mm.
dermatology case?" or "Sarah, what do you think?" And we did some research and we found really interesting things like that. And it's the sort of unconscious biases that made us feel a bit out of the picture, let's say.
Kind of hidden, not really there, not as important. And so, like, what moment, or usually it's several moments or a period of time, like you realize, like, okay, this is not for me. I need to actually move on from this.
From the NHS, from the traditional route, is that what you mean?
Hmm.
So I graduated in 2020 with the COVID pandemic. So I was a little baby doctor thrown in the front lines. And I think from that moment, I saw the NHS at its most challenging time. So I think I saw maybe the worst of it, because it's already an institution that was struggling, and then put in a global pandemic and you've got extreme shortage of staffs, lots of issues there were at the time. So I think around that time I started to think, I'm not sure if this is for me anymore. I didn't feel very supported. Teaching and training for F1s, F2s, that all went out the window. And I felt really out of my depths, and I thought, I don't think this is for me. I already didn't think it was for me, and that was very much the cherry on top that made me think I need to start looking elsewhere. So after I thought, let me finish F1, F2, there was that pressure to finish was still there. So I thought, let me think about what else can be done. But I do think it started before that. I would say it started in medical school for me. I always wanted to study languages. That was always my passion. I did A-level French, A-level Arabic, and again, that
Mm,
migrant background thing of you must be a doctor, you must be a lawyer, you must be an engineer. Those are the three options given to you.
mm,
So if I really
hmm.
think about it, it probably started even earlier. However, I that pressure again to finish medical school, finish F1, finish F2, and then after F2, I thought, that's it. I've got these qualifications, I've got this degree. I can always explore other things, and if I really want to come back, and I always can. And that was the point where I thought, that's it. I've got to try the things.
Mm,
So I worked for a charity for 6 months, and I worked in occupational medicine for 6 months as well, as I was exploring other options.
And just want to like go back to like you talked about the pressure to finish. Where was that pressure coming from?
I would say it was well-meaning family members.
Okay.
They grew up abroad where, coming to the West was seen as the golden ticket to success. And I believe they did the best they could with what they had. And I come from a family of doctors. My dad's a doctor, my granddad's a doctor, my mum's a biochemist. So science and medicine was always in the picture. Um, I think that pressure came from a fear of the unknown. That was all they knew, and they didn't really believe there could be anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I totally identify with that as well. It's either going to be medicine or law. Basically, there's only
Yeah.
two options. You're clever, you're going to do one of those, and then you're set for life. There was not really much in the way of guidance as to like what do you do, like as in like just getting into the profession and then you'll be fine. Seemed to be the narrative.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I am fine, but it's not as clear cut as that, as we've seen time and time again. So I mean, it sounds like you you found your space beyond the traditional pathways. And so tell me more about how you developed your non-clinical and leadership career in global health.
Mhm.
Yeah, beyond medicine. Like how did that come about? And yeah, what challenges did you face in that?
Yeah, so like I said, I always loved languages. I did A-level languages alongside the sciences, and I used to watch MSF videos. I don't know if you know Médecins Sans
Yeah.
Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, and I thought, okay, let me combine medicine and languages somehow. I grew up in Sudan and also in Saudi Arabia, and I saw the stark inequalities that exist based on just where you happen to be born. So I thought I can merge all of these things, and that is where the passion for global health grew. I started working from around second year university, which is 10 years ago now. I started working in migrant health. So I was working around female genital mutilation, Islamophobia, drug and gang violence, things that affect migrants more. So I started working with a charity. I started working on a freelance basis with them, and that's when the consulting started. And I started getting paid to do workshops and talks and speeches and university lectures. And that was something I always held on the side of studying medicine because I always thought, I'm not sure about medicine, so I'm going to carry this on the side, and maybe it will get me somewhere one day.
I mean, it's quite incredible that you developed your career outside of that traditional pathway, aligned with your passions, aligned with that creativity, and grew that. So, again, going back to the curiosity of like why the Doctors in Industry program, it sounded like you were doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing bits and bobs, and after F2, I was doing small bits of consulting here and there. However, I felt like it wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted
Mm,
more impact. I wanted more visibility. I wanted more income, and I knew that I couldn't do it alone anymore. At the time where I joined the Medic Footprints Doctors in Industry Fellowship, it had been about 2 years since I'd done any clinical work. I sort of left that back in 2022 after I finished F2. And so I was doing it all alone, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was sort of maybe reaching out to some contacts that I'd had here and there, but it wasn't the impact that I wanted to have. It wasn't the income that I wanted to have, and it wasn't the kind of frequency and amount that I wanted. It was very sort of freelance and here and there, but it wasn't continuous, if that makes sense.
No, I hear that you wanted bigger, you wanted better, and 2 years later you were getting some results, but you knew intuitively there was more that you could achieve, and doing it alone wasn't working so well on that ground. And that's the thing because I mean I did a lot of things alone, and I'm always curious to look back and be like, why was I doing it alone? Why, where did that actually come from? And again, I look back at medicine basically, and maybe that culture of it's very competitive. You've got to stay in your lane. Um, you know, like you've got to achieve your goals pretty much on your own track alone. I'm even always reflecting as to like what point did I think that working alone without any support, independent was better? I don't
Yeah.
know how you think about that.
Yeah. I would also say I would look around my peers, my friends, they all started training, and I thought I was alone. I thought, am I the only one who feels like medicine, there's something beyond medicine? Am I the only one who feels like our medical degrees are can be used for so much more than just clinical medicine? And I'd followed like many people, followed Medic Footprints for years, and it's actually how I discovered the occupational health job that I did. And so when there was the free 7 day challenge in January, I was like, this is great. This is a community of people who are just like me, people who are doctors who believe that there's impact beyond clinical medicine. And that there was a light bulb moment. I was like, oh, this is a community of like-minded people. I don't have to do this alone anymore.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, like having that community of like-minded people is way more powerful than I think we realize, especially because, for example, the doctor's mess has been taken away from hospitals, and we're not spending nearly enough time with our peers. But I mean, moving forward to having joined the program, um, I mean, actually, let's step back. As in, let's step forward again. I'm like back forward, indecisive, making a decision. Right, we're going to move forward. Community. What is the difference between going the alone road versus community of like-minded people? What has been the difference for you when we're
Yeah.
focusing on the power of that community versus doing it alone?
First of all, I want to say how much I underestimated the power of community. I really thought I could do it alone, and until I joined the program, the fellowship, I didn't. I really didn't understand, why I thought I could do it alone. I think for me, the power has been in, so number one, accountability. There's so much accountability and encouragement. The fellows, the people have joined my workshops, people are supporting me so much, reaching out to me, people, also the network that has been secondly, a really powerful source of community. Just yesterday at the doctor's mess that we hosted, I was talking about how I've hired a photographer, videographer to make a film for Kolana, and how I want to expand that film so that it reaches as many people as possible. And then somebody at the mess was like, "Oh, I know someone who knows the CEO of Channel 4, and I can put you in touch, and maybe there could be some synergy there so that your film could be showcased on Channel 4." I would not have had that opportunity if I wasn't part of this amazing community and this amazing network.
I mean, but then again, like people are like who are listening, yeah, but then how? How did that happen? How did that work? Like, what was it that actually made the difference?
What was it about the community?
Yeah, yeah. What is it that got you that gig? What is it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, being part of this community. If I wasn't part of this community, I wouldn't have been at that doctor's mess yesterday. I wouldn't have opened up. And at the doctor's mess, we are sharing our wins, our challenges. We are bouncing ideas off each other. People are seeing each other's blind spots. People are suggesting amazing contacts to each other. We are so much stronger together. And that support has been, like I said, I really underestimated the power of community. I really did underestimate that.
Because there's also an element of you see other people doing it, so you believe that you can do it.
Yeah,
Right, and you're seeing that
absolutely.
every day, you're hearing it every day. Just like,
Yep.
being in medicine, you're around, so you're in a certain different culture and you're seeing people do certain things and you're hearing people do certain things. And so you're like, okay, well, that's my world. And so can I, whether that's good
Yeah.
or bad, whether that's where you want to go or not. And so this being alone, like you're kind of left to your devices, which may or may not work, and then you expose yourself to that trial and error, which takes a very long time. But
Yeah.
being amongst people, again, as you talked about blind spots being key, because we've all got blind spots, and just having someone else around you to be like, hey, this is my experience, this worked for me, this didn't work for me, gives you way more of that informed
Yeah.
process for your own, informed.
Yeah.
You may decide I'm still going to do it anyway, but at least you go in informed and you learn from
Yeah.
other people's challenges, mistakes, and wins.
Yeah. And just to add to that as well, what you said about you see other people doing it and you think that you can do it. And I really saw that when I joined. I thought, wow, Abena is a Black woman and she is the founder and CEO of this amazing company. Maybe that could be me one day. And I think because I'm a Black woman, that representation really matters. And it's something that I see the new generation are having more of. For example, my sister, she's 16. We grew up, we've got really big, thick, curly hair. I always wanted to straighten it growing up using relaxers, that sort of thing. Now I see in the young, and I think because the younger generation have so much more representation, there's more Black artists, there's Black Barbies now, all these little things, they matter. And she's never wanted to get rid of her curls or anything like that. And I really believe in the power of representation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, and this is not something that I've consciously done, but I see that one of my biggest dreams and visions is to create a truly diverse community, right? Where there's it's open to everyone, but most importantly, people who come from diverse backgrounds, genders, sexuality, like all of that. Again, that comes from my occupational medicine, not even before then, because I see that people who are from, underrepresented groups, regardless of how you define it, they have their own unique challenges that aren't necessarily solved, especially in the traditional world of work.
Yeah.
And being able to create something for yourself and that is completely led by you and designed by you and controlled by you is powerful and flexible and impactful. And you were talking about the vulnerabilities that you were sharing in the mess yesterday. Would you be able to share any with us around, you know, what have you got any vulnerabilities that have impacted your work or your ability to do certain things? And how has building Kolana, launching this global health program, how has that helped you to manage those vulnerabilities?
Fantastic question. So, yes, I do have vulnerabilities, and for the longest time, I hid them. Just it was only a couple of days ago that I made my first ever post on LinkedIn about the chronic health problems that I face. I always thought, I'm meant to be the doctor. I can't be the patient, so I can't really talk about my problems and my health problems. It's not my place to do that, and I really wish I hadn't done that. So, yeah, I have multiple chronic health problems. I have keratoconus and retinal degeneration. I've had multiple eye surgeries. I have permanent vision loss in my right eye. I see flashes, shadows, double vision. I really struggle with my vision. I have an autoimmune skin disorder. I was also diagnosed with osteoarthritis in both my knees. I was born with a congenital abnormality in my knees that meant that yeah, have painful crunching and grinding in both my knees at 28. I'm only 28, and I used to run a lot. I've been told I can't run again. And each of these things has been a challenge. I also have
I saw
ADHD.
you
That
carrying your husband actually the other day in a picture.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that was the post that I made. I
Yeah.
made a post about how, what does carrying my husband in an art gallery have to do with my chronic health problems?
Hmm.
And I was talking about the power of art and the power of art in its way of healing. We saw this really funny picture that inspired me to pick up my husband, and that painting really inspired that sort of joy and strength, because I do
Yeah.
struggle with my knees. And
Yeah.
I was talking, because it's something we talk a lot about in Kolana. Kolana is a collective, a global health movement that looks at global health through the lens of culture, music, art, and how much healing there is in all of those different kind of humanities, languages. There is so much healing in that, and that's the sort of ethos of Kolana. So yeah, that's a little bit about the chronic health problems that I face. I was mentioning I'm also neurodiverse. I have ADHD, and a combination of all of these sort of physical and emotional problems are the vulnerabilities that I have. And we at Colina we have a global health program, and I've started to be more open about my vulnerabilities. And that has been really successful. Like I was really nervous about it, but I saw that the people on the program really related, and they actually started opening up about their own health problems, and that caused a beautiful discussion around how we could support each other, and and sort of relatability and connection, and that kind of the commonalities that human face, the common problems that humans can face. And it actually brought us a lot closer in the program, so I was really glad that I took that step to do that.
That sounds really powerful and liberating in many ways. Because as I said, I see so many people with disabilities, again, coming with my occupational health hat, including myself, that really struggle in the traditional world of work. So being able to create something that works around you, not the other way around, um, enables you to be your best self and make the impact where you want to make the impact and earn the money where you want to make the money and take the breaks when you need to take the breaks, so to
Exactly,
speak. Like
exactly.
really, really being your own boss and creating a community around that and nurturing more leaders in the course of your work. So yeah, I mean, like, we just had a leadership session actually, as with the industry leadership fellows, and we talked about, what is leadership for us as individuals. And end of the day, this program, it's designed to nurture more leaders, more pioneers and trailblazers who are at the forefront of this movement, because this is what, I've been in this space for 11 years. I started off with like storytelling, signposting, but then realizing that a lot of doctors, again, following me for decades, like it's like, okay, cool. Why haven't you done anything yet?
Mm,
And there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of imposter syndrome, but there's a lot more beneath the surface, um, whereby some of those doctors, they need to see more leaders actually leading, and seeing more people like them leading as well, and even understanding what does good leadership look like. And so visibility is a key part of that. Vulnerability we talked about is a key part of that. Really being positioning yourself so that you are open and you can establish more relationships and better human connections. Like that's how I see leadership. And we were talking about how it differs from the leadership you see in I say healthcare systems, not just the NHS, healthcare systems, which isn't necessarily what we feel is needed for doctors to not even maintain, for doctors to preserve our value as a profession, because we can see the challenges that are going on. And personally, I see that the opportunities are in industry, because doctors like you are then in that space able to create their own institutions, right, and grow that off their own bat, rather than having to be looked down upon or controlled or contained by another system that may or may not align with their values. So it's really powerful to hear that story for you, and to see how you're creating a legacy. So I'd love to hear more about your vision for the future. Like, what does success look like to you in
mhm.
growing Kulina? I mean, especially with all of the challenges that you're experiencing personally, professionally, like what does success look like to you? And what is it that you feel like you need to get to your next milestone at the moment?
Mm, I love that. I love what you said about leaving a legacy. That's something we've been talking about in our global health program. One of the tasks I set was to create a legacy quote, and to kind of encourage the creation of a legacy quote. I was talking about how if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. And so, which
Mm-hmm.
is a quote that I love, and I was yeah, encouraging us to dream big. And so my dream, my vision with Kolana is to be the biggest global health hub in the world. There's the
Great.
WHO. I'm dreaming big, and I want Kolana to
Yes.
be a household name just like the UN, the WHO. That is my dream, my vision.
Yes.
And it might not be my generation, it might be the next generation, but I think having a big goal like that, a big dream, a big vision is so important, because it reminds us that, our careers are our calling, aren't they? They are a calling. And, I think speaking again
Well, they
about
should be
legacy.
our calling. I tell
Yeah.
you, yeah, it should be our calling. And like a lot of us kind of, end up in medicine because it's the thing to do, But I believe, regardless of what path we will take, the path that we're meant to take, it will happen regardless.
Hmm.
But we have to you have to listen to yourself, you have to lean into your intuition, and you have
Absolutely.
to think big. And if you're in
Yeah.
an environment where you're not allowed to think big, or that's not valued, move out of that environment.
Yeah. Definitely.
And
Definitely.
I realize how much of the legacy of thinking small and contained that I brought with me from the institution, right? And even now I'm speaking to doctors who are like apologizing for their dreams and
Mm.
apologizing for big visions, and that absolutely needs to stop, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
especially now when doctors, we like the world needs doctors more than ever, but it's also a time where doctors really need to redefine. We really need to redefine our own value, because what we were valued for is totally being eroded right now. And this is where the creation happens. This is where the building happens, and this is it cannot happen within another institution who has another agenda. So it's just great to, yeah, I just love that quote as well. I just absolutely love the quote.
Mm.
Say it again. Say it one more time. What was the quote about thinking big?
Absolutely. Like that quote is something that has been a huge part of something we talk about a lot in the global health program.
Oh, brilliant. So, going back to global health before we close, I'm sure there are lots of doctors going, "Oh, global health, tell me more about it. How do I get into it?" Tell us, how do you get
Mm,
into it?
great question. So I would say how to get into global health, picking something that is, something you're really passionate about. I think that is going to be the key. And, passion is something that we throw around a lot and we talk about a lot. But if I give an example of, for me, it's usually something that's personal. So for me, I got into global health through my work in FGM, female genital mutilation. Unfortunately, where I come from, Sudan, there's a really high prevalence. It's something that has affected many people in my own family. And I grew up seeing, the psychological consequences of that, and also seeing how much culture plays into that. So I chose something that was personal, and I think passion has to be something that's personal. So, and I'm starting to see that people who are in global health, it's because of a deep injustice that they've seen in the world that they're getting into it.
Mhm.
When it comes to FGM, I'm the first generation of women in my family who thankfully have not experienced it, and that's due to and if you go back to thinking about legacy, so my dad's an obs and gynae doctor. He used to go out to rural places in Sudan and raise awareness around FGM, and it was already his mission to stop this harmful practice. And I feel like I'm taking on the reins now and being the next generation. And so if you can think of something that is, your passion, what something I also say in the global health program is, what breaks your heart enough that you want to make a difference around in the world. That is the essence of global health. Global health is that we are a global community, and if there is and the inequalities that exist are unfortunately very stark. They and global health really puts an emphasis on international health being just as important as the health that we see here in the West. So yeah, what breaks your heart enough that you want to make a difference around? That would be my piece of wisdom into getting into global health.
So, what breaks your heart enough to make a difference?
Mm,
I mean, I think that is the key question that everyone and like, even in the program, we talk about your big why. Like, why is this important to you? Because if it isn't important to you on a personal, visceral level, you're going to give up soon, you know?
yeah.
And that's why when doctors come to me and say, "What jobs can I do? Or what roles can I get into?" And I was like, forget about the roles, forget about the job titles. Like, you need to be thinking about where are the challenges, where are the problems that you can potentially solve, that you're really passionate about solving, and what
Mm,
is going to keep you on that mission, you
yeah.
know? Because any mission is just filled with obstacles, guaranteed, like never ending a lot of the time, and what it can't have is for you to give up, because
Yeah.
that will happen a lot, that getting to that
Absolutely.
point where you're like you're falling off the horse, or you don't have anything left. And that's why mission is a mission. It's not meant to be easy, but you've
Yeah.
got to have that connection to keep you there, that big why. And so
Yeah.
it's really wonderful to hear that from you. And so if anyone wants to get hold of you, what is the best way of doing that
Mm, mm.
moving forward?
Say that again, sorry.
If anyone wants to get hold of you,
Oh
what's the best way
yes.
of doing that?
The best way to get hold of me is LinkedIn. Rania Ibrahim, Dr. Rania Ibrahim. You can find me on LinkedIn, reach out, send me a message, and I will get back to you.
Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Rania. It's such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. You're a real inspiration to so many people, including myself. And I cannot wait to see how Kulana blows up over the next generation and centuries as the global health organization. It's going to happen. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you,
It's like
thank
just
you,
watching
thank
it
you.
happen. That's the exciting bit.
Thank you so much.